Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of 2435 North Quad. Welcome to 2435 North Quad. Welcome to Lost in Translation, Stories of International Experience. My name is Mike Flynn. Oh no, you can applaud if you want. Oh man, sorry to interrupt the applause with my name. None of that applause is about me. No, it's not. So, first, before we start, I would like to call attention to the wonderful sponsors of this event. We are sponsored by the School of Information. Give it up for the School of Information. Give it up for the College of Engineering. Give it up for the School of Social Work. Give it up for the College of LS&A. And finally, give it up for the International Center. Yes. Very excited to be here. We have a bunch of wonderful storytellers for you tonight. I was thinking about, do I have any cool international stories? And I thought about it for a good long time. Like, I've been to a bunch of countries, but it was all when I was like a teenager, so I didn't really take it in that much. I didn't really take anything worthwhile, except for this one time. There was this one thing that I thought of. I was in Germany, and I took German in high school, and I thought I was pretty good at it, but then I went to Germany to live with a host family for 2 weeks, and I realized how little I knew. I was like a fish in some place where fish are not. It's a bad analogy, which is about where my German was at. That was the level. I was like, I could barely speak to my host family. It was crazy. I felt very lonely. But then this one dude in the family, his name was Fleming. I remember him. He asked me to go play football with him. Like the real football, And so I went out to the field with him, and I played a game with him and his buddies, like real athletic German folks. And me, I'm not very good at sports. So I just kind of ran back and forth on the field over and over and over again. But it was a lot of fun, I got some exercise. I nodded at some guys. They nodded back. It was cool. We were communicating, which was great. So yeah, I guess that story is kind of a testament to how even when you don't know the language, you can find common ground with human beings all over the place if you're willing to look in the right places. So that's my little mini story. With that, are you ready for your first storyteller of the night? All right. This next person is a very nice man who I had the pleasure to talk to earlier today. I'm very excited to hear his story. Give it up for Marius Lex.
Hi, everybody. Cool that you're here to listen to our stories. I'm very excited to tell it to you. It's just a small experience I had traveling with my sisters from Germany to London, and let me set the scene for you. We are at the London Stansted Airport, and we're sprinting through the airport. My sister shoves a little girl aside who, annoyingly sucking on a lollipop, stepped in her way. My other sister takes a flying leap to avoid 3 huge suitcases, and I contort myself to blow like fog through the crowd. Let's stop it right there and examine how we got there. So we had planned a last-minute trip to London, and shamefully little effort had been put into the organizational issues of that trip by any one of us. So we arrived at the airport, everything was fine, but the trouble started when we left the airport. Are there any people who have been to the UK or who are from the UK? Yes, a lot of people. Okay, cool. You might know what I will be talking about now. The UK has some issues when traveling around, and that issue is traffic to a certain extent. So when we left the airport, we arrived at the Victoria Street station. After we had stopped by the Victoria Street coach station, the coach station Victoria Street, and the Victoria Street coach station first, to finally catch our bus from there, which we only caught because it was late, just like us, thanks to a suicidal deer. So we were very thrilled about that. We caught our bus and made it to our hostel, and the next day was pretty much just the touristy stuff, excited about London. And in the evening, we decided to attend a musical event. We went to that club, had a good time at the concert, and when we left the club, we were completely dehydrated. And to rehydrate, we looked around for a takeaway or something similar, and we did find something similar to rehydrate. A fish and chip shop, very original. And we went in there and ordered the only thing on the menu because we thought we might as well grab something to eat too. Fish and chips. And as we were eating, I was just about to ask for an Earl Grey with some milk to complete the perfectly British picture. As 5 tipsy ladies entered the shop, and everyone who has been to the UK or is from the UK knows what tipsy ladies means in the United Kingdom. So we thought we might as well leave the shop, and since the owner had enough to worry about now, so we followed the dimly lit streets back home to our hostel. The next morning, we got up very early because we didn't want such a hurry to hurry up that much like when we arrived. So we got up super early, caught our bus no problem, but got stuck in one of London's endless traffic jams. And it took us an extra 2 hours to make it to the airport. So that's how we got there where we paused earlier, right? Sprinting through the airport. We can unpause now because it's gonna get funny, I hope. So the German comedian Marc-Uwe Kling once said that the airport is like a laboratory to test out how much crap people will take before they start complaining. And the answer is a lot. As we arrived at the discouragingly long line at the security check, we had to pay £10 each to gain instant access to the grouping station, and Katja and I just slipped right through, but Nati, my other sister, was held back because her bag was buried, for no reason, how we found out later. But since we only had a few minutes left before our plane took off, Katja and I just ran for it. What we didn't know at that time was that we just commenced a race against time that we just couldn't win at this airport. 1 mile of artificial distance extension, which would have brought tears to the eyes of every consumerist, separated us from our gate. Sales personnel threw themselves at us, spraying us with perfume, screaming, "But that's duty-free!" And I felt like Gimli the dwarf in the Battle of Helm's Deep, pushing the salespersons out of my way, and as I glanced over to my sister in combat, I saw an elvish sparkle in her eye, and a strand of her hair seemed to be of golden blonde for a second. As we pushed and pressed through to the gate, we arrived in time, but as we looked around, we didn't see our sister. And just a few seconds too late, our sister arrived at the gate. Moria's gate had collapsed, Caradras broke to pieces, or in non-nerd terms, the airline staff had closed the doors on us. My sister Nati, who had been held up, she was very angry. She told us about this girl who had taken hours at the security check and obviously participated in an aviation event for the first time in a meaningless life. So that was the reason we missed our flight, and she was so angry she went to the restroom, and Katja and I proceeded to the waiting area in the transit zone because we had to wait there for a security officer to guide us back to freedom. And we met a German couple in the waiting area, and we told them all about the stupid bitch who had taken hours and didn't know what to bag before proceeding to the transit area. My sister said, "How can you be so stupid?" And we went on, and we insulted that girl in ways we wouldn't necessarily be proud of today. And we just went on and on about the girl that had cost us our flight. And until my sister slowly stopped and poked me. I paused in my seemingly endless stream of what I thought of as more and more creative ways to call an idiot, and looked at her, and she pointed at the German couple. In fact, they had been suspiciously quiet the entire time, and they stared at the ground rather intensely too. My sister pointed at all the insufficiently bagged items next to the girl's hand luggage. When my other sister came back from the restroom, her smile turned right into a frown. What followed was an awkward silence, which was in fact so awkward that I had to suck in every last moment of it because I thought that there'd never be a situation this awkward in my life ever again. And up until now I was correct about that. Thankfully. So the best thing was that we couldn't leave the waiting area and everybody knew who was who. So it was super awkward, and then finally we were led back to freedom and the German couple just they vanished. We never saw them again. All of this resulted in a sleepless night on uncomfortable airport seats and very expensive additional tickets to take us home. But even though those were two of the more crazy days of my life, I'm very happy they happened just like they did. Because what would I have to tell you if they didn't? Thank you.
Yeah, keep it going for Marius Lex, everybody. Very good. All right, one thing I forgot to mention before, this event is part of the International Career Pathways Series, so give it up for the International Career Pathways Series. Another thing I forgot to mention, if you've entered this building and at some point, if you haven't signed in yet, there is a sign in over there, right? Yeah, in that general, either one of these directions. All right, there are many opportunities for you to sign in, so please do so. And I would like to now, I'm going to read, I guess I'll read one of these. I'll read one of these mini slips. Now the prompt is, when I traveled to blank, I was homesick for blank. And this one reads, when I traveled to Sierra Leone, I was homesick from homemade rendang from Indonesia. That sounds good. I don't know what that is. But it sounds good. Cool. Now, I'll do another one. When I travel, okay, this is the same prompt. Cool. When I traveled to Spain, I was homesick for wider roads. Having made the drive from California to Portland countless times, I'm homesick for wider roads in America. So I feel that. All right. No more subpar humor. Are you ready for your next speaker? This next gentleman is, I didn't get a chance to meet him before the show, but I'm very excited to see his story. Give it up for George Sprague. Oh, wait.
Cool. All right. I promised you no more subpar humor, and you are here to be disappointed. So, my name is George Sprague. I work here at the School of Information. Welcome to the School of Information, everyone. So, if you can't tell, I'm a Michigan native. I'm going to do the hand thing. I'm from a small farm town, not too far away from here, that just so happens to make the news numerous times for embarrassing reasons. Closing school for the Mayan calendar. Things like that. Not joking. It's also small enough where the mayor announces the football games and is also my dad. That is a peek into my life. So get excited. So, over my 10 years of working within the field of student affairs, I've gotten to have a lot of really amazing experiences. And a lot of that has been through just sheer serendipitous circumstance, sometimes it's self-motivated. This is going to be a story about one of those kind of self-motivated times. When I got my first big person job out of grad school, I was working at Indiana University. The facility that I was working in was about 20% East Asian international students, most of which were from Japan. I received very little training prior to working with about 20% of my student population. So one of the cool things was they offered me a lot of flexibility in my own professional development. So what I got to do was create my own international excursions. So through a couple of months of planning, I found myself going to Japan to observe K-12 classrooms. What I'm going to share with you today is nothing that I saw in those classrooms. It is the more transformative pieces that I saw on the subway. I'm going to share with you 3 quick stories of my experiences traveling around on the Tokyo subway system. 2 of which are fairly hilarious, the 3rd of which was the most transformative moment of my entire life. Before I even got to the subway platform one day, I had one of my kind of cultural immersion days, so I got to just wander around. And I was admiring all of the fantastic signs that are all over Tokyo subway systems, informing you of rules, courtesies, and things that you should do. I saw a fantastic sign of 2 very helpful subway attendants, stick figure men, lifting an individual to carry them down the staircase, because this staircase just so happened to be one of the very few staircases in all of Tokyo that didn't have an escalator next to it. Next to that sign, as I was admiring it, was the world's cutest, tiniest little old lady with her walker, very obviously waiting for somebody from the train station to carry her down the stairs. So I walk up to her and point at the sign, because at this point I know about 4 words in Japanese, barely enough to find a restroom, because I am the tall Midwestern farm kid in Tokyo. Great. She very politely smiles and points, and so I make the motion that I'm going to pick her up, and she nods and agrees, and so I find myself lifting this tiny, wonderful little woman down, and I carry her down the stairs, which is fantastic. A very polite person brought her walker down with them, and so I set it down. As I'm kind of walking down, she makes a kind of smile at me. She says 2 words that I was very excited to find out later meant what I was hoping. She's like, quiet guy Gene, so I'm the cute foreigner, hooray. But as about spryly as you've ever seen a human go, she picks up her walker herself and sprints to the train. So I'm sitting there in disbelief for about 1/10 of a second, but I'm like, okay, that's probably not even the top 3 weirdest things I've seen today, so that works. That's fine, that's fine. So fast forward a couple of days, and I'm finding myself on a train again. And when people interact with you on a train, it's fairly strange. It's out of the norm. Everyone really keeps to themselves. The rules are really designed about not interacting with the other passengers on the train. You keep your headset volume down, you keep your legs as narrow as you can, so you make as much room for everyone else to be able to get onto the train. But there is this 8-year-old kid that is just losing his mind next to his mom. He keeps pulling her arm and looking at me, and pulling her arm and looking at me. And I've seen this expression before, because this happened every time I was mistaken for numerous Caucasian celebrities in Japan. And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm standing in the train in my traditional tourist apparel, so I got my backpack on, I'm rocking my Midwestern jorts, so for those that don't know, jean shorts. Sitting there, well, standing there, I'm looking around, and I look above me. And above me is a sign. It's a sign for the WWE. They're going to be in Tokyo. So the World Wrestling Entertainment used to be World Wrestling Federation. And for those of you that are unfamiliar, there is a gentleman named John Cena. There is a gentleman named John Cena. He's a big deal. He's the face that runs the place. This kid looks up at me, and in all the courage he can, he looks up at me. I look down at him. He points at the sign. Goes, John? I put 2 and 2 together, and I just turn back, kind of smile, hit the pose, sitting there. And I'm just, as I'm going on the train, I'm just trying to do stuff to kind of just exude the confidence that you would expect. My stop's coming up, and I see that it's coming, so I decide I'm going to make this kid's life. So before I get off this train, I start walking. Kid's right here. Before I get off the train, John Cena has a catchphrase and a hand motion. And you're about to learn this and be an insider. You're all wrestling marks now. Get ready for it. You know, see me. Do this to this kid. He loses his mind. He's jumping, he's grabbing his mom's arm. He's just sprinting around the train like, to this day, I guarantee he thinks he met John Cena. To this day, that is the biggest muscular self I will ever be. So that's okay. So, it's kind of weird that you know see me is the phrase, because the third incident really kind of goes to that measure. So, if you're not familiar, trains in Tokyo are extremely congested, especially if you're traveling during rush hour. And so, it wasn't uncommon for it to be shoulder to shoulder, as tight as you could humanly squeeze in. But, you know, sometimes you get lucky. You're able to, like, find a seat. And this was a circumstance where I'm traveling in the middle of the day, and it's kind of unnaturally empty on my first stop, so I find myself sitting down. And a couple of stops start happening, and the train starts filling up. It's filling up more and more, and making sure I'm, as mentioned before, as courteous as possible. You know, headphones are as low as humanly possible. I'm squeezing in as tight as all 6'4" of me can. And I notice the whole train is now full. And for some reason, to the right, to the left of me, nobody's sitting down. I'm motioning folks to sit down, trying to see, okay, what's going on? I know I showered that morning, so that's not the issue. So I'm just sitting there contemplating to myself, why aren't people sitting next to me? What's going on? And I started thinking about it. I put on my student affairs hat, and was thinking about how people were looking at me. And I started processing different things. Why weren't people sitting next to me? Was it because I was different? Was it because I was foreign? Was it because I was something different, you know, strange and new to them? I was sat there so in thought that I had missed my stop, which stinks because guess what? That's going to be a longer train ride now. And I'm totally going to be late to seeing one of my colleagues. And then I thought to myself, that's really probably one of the first times that I have been in a situation where I've had to question why folks were avoiding me. Where in a situation in my day-to-day life, I didn't have just a casual outlet of those that were like me to be able to immediately retreat into. I found myself alone, feeling othered with nothing but my thoughts to really reflect upon. And I thought, how many people in their day-to-day lives feel that way for situations far, 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 far more intense than just sitting on a train, just trying to get to where they're needing to go, for when people are actively othering them. So in really thinking about that experience, it changed how I interact with people. My first two experiences I told you were really kind of active, me going out and finding ways to interact with others. My third experience was really other people not interacting with me or interacting with me by avoiding me. And so when I approached my work and I approached how I interacted with others, I really tried to approach it from that lens of seeing others, making myself vulnerable, and really being open to helping others when they may feel other. And with current conditions included in that, I feel like that lesson is more important now than ever.
Give it up for George Spray. Oh man, yeah, that third one was very moving. I was gonna make a joke about how your humor was subpar in the golf sense, which means it's good. But then I heard that third one, I was like, oh man, wow. This is why I love storytelling, you guys. Real, genuine emotion. It's awesome. All right, folks, I'm going to read a couple of these mini slips for you. All right, the prompt is, I had a lost in translation moment when. I had a lost in translation moment when I was wandering through a market in Vienna and an old man running his stand kept hand feeding me almonds. Hand feeding me almonds. Folks, I'm glad that was not me because I have a nut allergy. All right, one more. When I traveled to Yemen, I was homesick for prime rib, parenthesis, and family, and parenthesis. Priorities. Prime rib, family. Prime rib, family. All right, folks, are you ready for your next speaker of the night? Yeah. Woo! Okay, that was weak. Are you ready for your next speaker? That's better. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this next young man is very, very fascinating and very cool. Give it up for John Meluso.
So just before Christmas in 2008, we found out that my dad had pancreatic cancer. And as many of you probably know, pancreatic cancer is nearly a death sentence. When you've got pancreatic, you had back, this was 2008, like I said, about a 99% chance that you will die within 5 years. It's gotten a little bit better since then, but not by a lot. So in 2010, when my dad said that he wanted to go on a vacation to Germany and Austria in the middle of winter, during one of the worst winters they'd seen in years, my brother, my mom, my sister, and I just kind of grinned and bore it because we knew that this might be our last family vacation. And so we went, and we were underdressed for the cold despite being Coloradans, and we did have a good time. We went to places like Neuschwanstein. We really enjoyed seeing this half-finished castle that everybody talks about as though it's one of the wonders of the world. And we eventually made our way down to Vienna, where we were on New Year's Eve, which is one of the most magical experiences I've ever had. We stopped for dinner that night at a Russian restaurant, and I was way underage, but not for there, of course. And so the owner of this Russian restaurant gave us all free shots of vodka, which was really special because then, as we came out of the restaurant, the streets started to light up. There were lights strung back and forth down all of the streets in the center of town. And these massive 10-foot chandeliers of ball lights strung down these streets as well. There were 25 different concerts going on at different portions of the center city, all at the same time. And you can just feel the magic in the air in a way that I had never felt before. It would have been a lot better were it not for the fact that the next morning at dark 30, I had to get up and get on a train for 10 hours to go to Berlin. So we got up, and rather than taking the 12-hour train through Germany and Austria around, we went through the Czech Republic. And so we took the train from Vienna to Prague and then straight through to Berlin. We were pulling out of the station in Prague, maybe about 15, 20 minutes outside the station, when the conductor came by, looked at our tickets, and angrily gave us this glance and said something in Czech that I couldn't understand. Only to quickly realize that we were stupid Americans and we didn't know anything. And so he quickly said in very broken English, "Your ticket's no good, you get off now." So clearly we were a little bit nervous because not only is he telling us to get off the train in a country where we don't speak the language, I spoke a little bit of German, but no Czech, and that was it. So we were kind of stuck there with his broken English. And on top of that, we were down to our last 200 euros because this was the last leg of our trip. My dad had splurged on first-class tickets for that train ride. And we enjoyed it. But that also meant that when you have to buy tickets to the border with Germany and you only have 200 euros, you're not going to make it. So the conductor tried to kind of push us for a second to see, you have enough cash, right? And our response was, no, we do not. We have 200 euros and that's it. What can you do for us? And so he told us that when we got to the next station, we were going to stop. And we were going to get off the train with him. We were going to run down to the ticket counter and buy tickets to cover that leg for the Czech Republic, from the border of Austria to the border with Germany. So he went away and did his stuff. We were there frantically trying to figure out, is there anything that we can do to make the situation better? He came back when the train stopped. He pointed at us and said, "You, come now." So my dad and I got off the train with him and sprinted back 3 cars as he ran down to the ticket counter. And he said, "Give credit card." So at this point, the thing that's probably going through all your heads is, was he trying to scam us? That's a good question. Because we gave the credit card because that's all we could do. The lady behind the counter swiped the card. She and the conductor quickly talked back and forth with something, and then he asked us, "You have cash, right?" My dad and I exchanged this look like, what the hell is going on here? But we had no choice. So he said, "Come with me." And so we sprinted back to the train, got on the car nearest to us. The conductor waved up to the front of the train for the engineer to start, and so the train took off almost before we got on the train. Of course, my mom, brother, and sister are back 3 cars ahead of us at this point. And so my mom describes it like this. She was worried, and so her response was, "Oh no, where are they? I'm going to go find a conductor and see if I can't find out if my family got on in time." My brother and my sister described it more like this. "Oh, where are they? What happened to you?" Which, knowing my mom, is probably not far off from the truth. So, a few seconds later, of course, we showed up. And my mom was visibly agitated, but she calmed down relatively quickly. And the conductor explained to us that what he was going to do was give us tickets from this podunk town outside of Prague to the border with Germany for the coach prices, which turned out to be about 150 euros. So that falls within our budget, right? We didn't complain. We accepted it, got the tickets. He let us stay there in first class. And so we went on our merry way. And though this did turn out to be our last family vacation, and that is a no, we have still to figure out to this day whether they tried to scam us or not. We never saw any charges on the credit card, but this sure seemed like they were trying to pull something. And at the same time, I can't help but think back and wonder that maybe in all this back and forth, he actually might have had our best at heart. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Yes, give it one more time for John Maluso. That was a beautiful, beautiful story. I like that a lot. All right, folks. I got a couple of more mini slips for you. Okay, this one's something I learned about my own culture when traveling abroad was the songs I grew up learning and singing are called propagandas in the US. Wow. Propaganda. That's cool. Wow. All right. Oh. This is the prime ribbon family one again. My mistake. Thank you. All right. Now this one is blank was the best experience I ever had with a local while traveling abroad. And the answer is, I have never traveled abroad. I will be for the first summer. Well, one thing I have to say about traveling abroad, the locals, top notch. Everywhere. Every country, the locals, killer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for your next speaker? Yeah. All right, your next speaker. I had a chance to talk with him before the show. He's very, very cool. I'm excited to read his story. And I'm not just saying that because I say that about everybody. Give it up for Marcus Hall.
Memorable days in Buenos Aires, Argentina. February 28th, 2010. I'm finally in Buenos Aires, and this city is huge. It's also really, really hot here. I thought I was coming to cold weather, but apparently we're still in the summer. You won't believe what's happened to me. Somehow, some way, I've already gotten myself into drama. Apparently, my host mother swindled me out of $120, so I won't be going back there anymore. And to add on to the drama, my mom thinks that I'm dead. There was an earthquake in Chile, and my mom hears on the news, earthquake in Latin America, thinking that Latin America is one city where I was located. My study abroad advisor insists that I call her, but I'll get around to it at some point. People here have a very, very strange accent when they speak in Spanish. Everything sounds like shoo sha sha all the time. Yesterday, when I was looking for my hostel, I asked one of the waiters at a restaurant, where is this hostel? And he just responds, "Está para allá." And I'm like, "Para allá? Pero qué significa para allá? What does para allá mean?" And he just keeps on repeating, para allá, boludo. And I just look at him thinking, what is para allá? I finally got to the hostel, and as I went there, I remembered Argentines from Buenos Aires speak Spanish with an Italian accent. Then I realized para allá, or para allá, just meant over there. I wonder why they speak that way. March 15th, 2010. Dear Diary, I got some good news. I finally got an internship. Yesterday, I went to this presentation about an Afro-Argentinian human rights organization. I was a little surprised that something like that even existed here. Since I've arrived, I noticed that I look really, really different from everyone here. I get a lot of stares, and I stick out no matter where I go. Anyway, I hunted down the presenter so that way my internship coordinator, Agustin, and I could have coffee with him. We decided that I'm going to work for the organization. I'm going to conduct some interviews, I'm going to manage their social media, and I'm going to recruit. I'm really, really excited. So far, I've met all the other activists. Andrea, Pedro, Martin, Carlos, my boss. I'm really, really excited. I hope I can make a positive impact on the organization. July 22nd, 2010. Dear Diary, I just witnessed something absolutely amazing today. Argentina legalized same-sex marriage. Wow, can you believe it? I'm so happy for the Argentinian community. I was in front of the Congreso supporting its people. I'm also really happy for my boss and his husband. They worked really, really hard to get that legislation passed. My boss was both a black rights activist and a gay rights activist, and I was there supporting the entire way. His husband is hilarious. He's always cracking jokes. He always calls me el loco fiestero, even though I'm not that much of a party animal. I also met a new friend, Alex. He's one of the few black Argentines that I've met here that's my age. I think I'm going to introduce him to Carlos. Maybe he could actually continue the work that I've been doing with the organization. July 7th, 2010. I finally made my way to Iguazu Falls, one of the 8th wonders of the world. The weather is incredible, the waterfalls are absolutely beautiful. It's crazy to think, though, that in Buenos Aires, it's freezing cold, when here in Misiones, next to Brazil, it's hot as hell. I'm starting to realize that my time in Buenos Aires is about to come to an end. So many things have happened since having been here for about half a year. I've been dropped off in the middle of a highway at 3 a.m. looking for a discotheque or a club. I've been catcalled by construction workers yelling to me in Portuguese, tutum bem, que lindo brasileiro. I witnessed political change. I saw a Madame Butterfly concert, which is pretty amazing. I've met incredible people. My friend Joaquin and I recently hung out, and he told me that I'm probably gonna miss Buenos Aires a lot. At first I thought he was just kind of exaggerating, but a few months down the road I realized that he was right. June 28th, 2016. Dear Diary, wow, I cannot believe I have been living in Madrid, Spain for 4 years. It's crazy the amount of time that's passed. I never thought I would have seen myself here during undergrad. It's a little strange that I chose to go abroad immediately after graduating from UVA. I wonder what motivated me to take such an alternative road. It probably had a lot to do with my time in Buenos Aires. Oh, Buenos Aires, mi querida ciudad. So many things about the city I miss. I miss the delicious alfajores with the yummy dulce de leche that you can find anywhere. I miss drinking really, really good, exquisite wine while eating a fat, juicy steak and it not killing my pocket. I miss my friends, Laura, Guillermo, Federico, Gustavo, Carlos, Alejandro, a lot of O's at the end. I miss seeing the countryside of Argentina, but I miss the hustle and bustle of Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires was an amazing experience, and Madrid has been awesome as well. But Buenos Aires will always have a special place in my heart. Buenos Aires siempre tendrá un huequito muy especial en mi corazón. Thank you.
Keep it going for Marcus Hall. That was great. Dolce de leche. That's what I took from that. That was a good story. All right, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for some more mini slips? Yeah. Cool. All right. Drinking wine by the river in summer was the best experience I ever had with a local while traveling abroad. I like that. The local's kind of invisible in this one. But that's all right. Wine is cool. All right. Ooh, here's... All right. Something I learned about my own culture while traveling abroad was how less taboo drinking is. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that without it being inappropriate. Except for, yeah. Yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to intermish? Yeah! Because we're about to get intermission. Oh, subpar humor. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. Feel free to help yourself to some beverages, some food. If you have any mini slips, feel free to give them to me, and we'll get this show rolling for you in a short while, all right? Cool. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for round two? Yeah. Very good, very good. All right, I'm going to start by reading some of these. I'm going to do 3 this time. I think we got a bunch. All right, here we go. All right. Something I learned about my own culture while traveling abroad was Germans can be closed off a bit and therefore come across as being rude. Oh, okay. I misread that for a second. I thought somebody was writing as a non-German. You know, Germans can be rude, but I misread it. It's about my own culture. Nobody's stereotyping tonight. Yay. All right. Here's another one. Something I learned about my own culture while traveling abroad was our version, parenthesis, American football, end parenthesis, is the most boring football in the world. No comment. Don't want to start any wars. Ooh, here we go. I had a lost in translation moment when I realized that not every country views cats and dogs as pets, but rather sees them as vermin and treats them as such. Oh, wow. I was unprepared for that one. That is dark. Oh God. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Oh, all right. Are you ready for your next speaker? Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, coming up to the stage is a very, very nice lady who I met before the show, and I'm very excited to hear her story. Give it up for Tara Narayan.
I usually don't tell people my last name. It's fairly simple to me, but I realize this gets lost in translation a lot. So, this is my story, very recent, over the summer when I went to India. Now, I am Indian, but when I went there for my research, I went to rural India and I'm an urban Indian, and the two are very, very different. I went there to conduct surveys, and I thought, yeah, I speak Hindi, I'm sure I can handle this. But when you get into the deep village level, you realize not everybody speaks Hindi. And there were times when I really wished that I could translate everything that I was saying, because it would really have helped me to know what people were saying. The survey went off fine. For those who are wondering whether we fudged our results, the survey went off fine, I can understand that. There were times, of course, when no matter how much translation you have, nothing's going to help you, because, for example, there are monkeys between you and your room. Monkeys speak one language, that is banana. I am not fluent. Nothing can be done. But there were other times when I really felt something in the way of communicating is just not coming across. So I didn't go there alone. I went with a teammate, and she's an American girl. Two-girl team, and we're going. And she's incredibly smart and focused and tough and resilient, and she loves to run. And she's training for a race that's going to happen this summer, and she wants to train. So she tells me, Nara, is there a place where I can go running? I would like to practice. And she says, we're staying with these people who are like recent college grads, our age, we found them. Can you ask them to help me in finding a place where I can train? And internally I go, don't ask me that. Don't ask. I don't want to ask them. I can't. Because you have to understand that running is not a popular thing in India. It's crowded, it's hot, we don't run just for the heck of it. I've lived in the US, so I understand. Running. But I was also brought up in India, so I understand. Running? So she wants to train, and I go to them and I'm like, is there like a open space she wants to run? I go, where does she want to run? Just run, she'll run and come back. Then why run? Is there a place? Just help me out. And you have to understand how much we don't run. Like, of course, there are some people who do this in the cities, protest. But the overwhelming majority of my 1 billion strong country runs under 3 circumstances only. One is if they are chasing something, like a bus. 2, if somebody is chasing them, like your angry girlfriend. 3 is if you're in a Bollywood movie. But apart from that, trust me. And I'm also really, really concerned because I feel, so she's super tough, she's traveled a lot, but I also feel like I brought her to my country, I'm responsible for her, this is rural India, I don't know what people are going to think, is it going to look weird? Are people going to start talking? Are they going to trace us back to, the friends we're living with? Is it going to get awkward? What are people going to, running? That's it? Just running, girl? So I don't know what's going to happen, and so I'm worried. And the guy, one of the guys who we were temporarily crashing with, looks at me and says, Tara, you can trust her with me. Relax. And I said, okay. I trust you. Okay. So really early the next morning, both of them wake up and go running just when the sun is rising. And under cover of darkness, she does her training. And that's it. Nothing happened. I'm responsible for her. I have to take care of her. Oh my God, this is going to be weird. Everything. It was fine. It was actually okay. Sure, I mean, the guy couldn't walk properly the next day because he's really not used to that kind of muscles overexertion. But it was fine. Sure, Riziko took a bit of a beating because, he thought, small girl, ha ha ha, but she took off like a bullet from a gun. But that was fine. We were leaving the town, and the owner of the place that we were staying comes back and tells me, and by the way, wish her luck. I hear she's a national level athlete who runs at Olympic speeds. But it's fine. And we're leaving, and I overhear somebody in the room passing by saying, hey, are you feeling bad that your American girlfriend is leaving? And I'm like, what is that? But it's fine. And they say, don't worry, dude, you could keep up with her anyway, and you won't be so tired all the time now. But it's fine. And on that note, we are leaving this town. We are leaving. Ridiculously quick time. That is my story. Thank you.
Yeah, a little round of Tara, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that was good. That was good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do something somewhat avant-garde for this next one. I'm going to read these prompts while walking over here so I can ask an official a question. All right. Something I learned about my own culture when traveling abroad was America has an abundance of free public toilets. Europe does not. Oh man, that's why I haven't left the country in years. That is the exact reason. All right. Number 2. I had a lost in translation moment. I had a lost in translation moment when I watched the 2003 film Lost in Translation, directed by Sofia Coppola and starring Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson. Nice. Number 3. Something I learned about my own culture. What is wrong with my speaking ability right now? Something I learned about my own culture while traveling abroad was racism exists back home. Yep, yes it does. I'm not even going to try to make that funny. Are you guys ready for your next speaker? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this next person is very, very cool, and I'm excited to hear her story. Give it up for Jessamine Bartley Matthews.
Hi. So I am not, I'm an athlete, and I've always played sports growing up, but I'm not the person people pass the ball to in the last seconds of the game. I'm not a clutch player. I'm the person who gets the coach's award always, which is a consolation prize, which means that I'm the person who always stayed after practice and picked up all the balls, and everybody appreciated that I was there. So that is something you should know about me. You should also know that I'm very competitive, to a fault. This is genetic. And so back in 2010, I got to Nicaragua, and I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and they did the site allocation like a baby gender reveal thing, where they give you a map and you have to put a post-it on the map of where you think you're going, and then they actually give you a packet of where you're actually going. And so I was the last person to be called, and I'm standing there and I'm kind of counting off the sites on my hands, and I had lied to them about everything. I was allergic to the sun, apparently. I really didn't want to go to the coast because it was far. It was as far as you could possibly go for every other volunteer in this community that I kind of built around myself on the Pacific side of Nicaragua. And so they hand me my packet, and if you know me at all, you know this is totally normal, but I got my packet and kind of smiled at them, and then walked outside and hid behind a Land Cruiser and just bawled. I just cried like, a lot because I didn't want to go because I was afraid and I didn't know any of the people there and it was terrifying. But I went. One of the things that you should also know about me is I'm very good at showing up. That's my key skill in life. And so I showed up. I got there, and I think my host family knew I was sad, and they took me to the beach. And I spent most of the day there by myself, throwing a ball up in the air and like catching it over and over and over again, because that's what you do when you don't really speak the language and you don't really know anybody. And so it's amazing how quickly things travel. News spreads without technology like wildfire in these little towns. And so the next day I get a knock at the door, and it's Dulce. And Dulce means sweet in Spanish. But Dulce is a woman who, the first time that I met her, we were walking down the street, and she kind of showed me her hand, and she says, "You know why I always wear these bowling rings on my fingers?" And I kind of looked at her like, "I don't know." And she puts her hands in a fist. She goes, "It's so if anybody tries to drop me, I'll be ready." Which is maybe a threat and maybe reassurance, and I didn't know because I didn't really know her. So Dulce's at the door, and Dulce wants to know, she says, "I hear you're athletic." I'm like, okay, interesting. And so she says that I should meet her at the stadium, which is a couple blocks away, for a catch with her sister. And I'm all excited because I'm going to have friends, it's going to be awesome. And I get there, and the whole women's softball team is there. And the whole men's softball team is there, and it's a tryout. And they handed me a glove. They found out I was a lefty, they handed me a glove. And then we proceeded to have my first softball practice since I was 7. I learned when I was 7, I played outfield, the ball rarely came to the outfield. And I learned that if you catch it, you don't have to throw it again, because I don't have a good arm. I'm fast, but I'm not good at softball. I should make sure that's known. Anyway, so I joined the team, and they said I passed the tryout, and they gave me these little polyester hot pants and like a tight little jersey, and they were like, "Okay, good, practices these days." And so it started to be this thing where I started to go to practices. And fast forward a year, this became sort of like my refuge in the community. The stadium was like kind of a scary place for women, but for me it became this place where every Sunday you go and you play. And Kukra Hill is my town, and it's a town that is Garifuna and Creole and Mestizo and Mosquito and like all these different, different ethnicities and religions, and then one white girl, and I was the white girl. And that was kind of a derogatory nickname, I think, when I first got there. But through the stadium, it was just like through heckling and like friendship and everything, I became their white girl. And it was the kind of thing where after a year of being such an integral part of this community and never really leaving, I started to see pictures of myself and be so sad because I would see pictures of our team and realize how different I was, even though I felt like we were all just the exact same. I think there's like a brain flip that happens when you live somewhere and you never leave. And it was kind of disconcerting, but I felt like I really belonged in that stadium. And so fast forward again, softball's a huge deal on the Atlantic coast of Nicaragua. Like soccer's not at all, but if you play baseball, you're in. And so every year, all the communities along the entire Atlantic coast meet up for one softball tournament. It's 3 days. You're not supposed to leave site as a Peace Corps volunteer, but they select the 25 top players from every community, and they go in rowboats and motorboats and like all these kind of different ways to get there. And they picked me, and I was on the team. And I was like, what is this? I'm not good at this game. Okay. But so I went, and I was like, okay, like, no one has to know, I'm gonna go, it's gonna be great, we're gonna sleep in this gymnasium, we're gonna play, it's gonna be fun. And my team starts killing it, like we're really good. I'm not that good, my team is doing so great. And we play the first day and it's great. And then the second day we're playing this team called Tascopani, and it's like playing the offensive line of like a football team. These women are so strong and just like work every day of their lives. And most people when they bat like have a stance, and these women just kind of stand there and it's a home run. And it was my first day playing left field because I'm usually center field, and they like threw me over there. I'm like, okay. And so every single at bat I was just standing there like this, like please don't do that again. I take a big deep breath and just hope. And they kept hitting it to me. And I kept catching it. And it was just this like amazing miracle day where I was like bleeding and sweating and like diving and catching it, and I was doing great. And like at a certain point I'm sitting in the dugout with my friend Yeti, and Yeti's nursing her baby between innings, and she's got a pet squirrel that's on her head. You can't make this stuff up. And Yeti's explaining the rules to me because I still don't know them. And I'm there, and I'm trying so hard. And she tells me that it's legal in softball in Nicaragua. It's legal to slide on your belly into first base, which I didn't know. Apparently it's not legal here, I found out the other day. But that's important because my next at-bat, we were winning. And it was near the end of the game, we weren't winning by much, and this team beats everybody by like 20 points. I mean, they were just like home run city, and I was catching them, and they did not like me. And so I'm like standing there at bat, and strike one goes by. I'm like, oh shit. And like, not a good batter. And so then strike two goes by, I'm like, oh god, I've got to hit the next thing that she throws at me. Like, I can't even read this woman. And so I hit it, and it's this like horrible bouncing line drive to second base, and she's standing there, and she could just like pick it up and like walk to the base. And I'm sprinting and I'm looking at her, and I'm sprinting and I'm looking at her, and she bobbles it. And I'm watching her do this, and I know the rules suddenly, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. And so I slide on my belly, and it's amazing, and I get to the base and I tag it, and I hear the ump go, safe. And then the next thing I remember is just blood. And I look at the base and it's red, and I touched my face, and where is everything? It just didn't feel right, something was wrong. And it was obviously my blood. And when I looked kind of at the crowd, and they're furious. They're just like screaming, like she did it for spite, she did it for spite. Because what happened was this woman, the second baseman, had gotten to the base and just knee dropped on my head and knocked me into the ground. And so, I don't know how somebody produced like an ice pack from somewhere. It's like the coast of Nicaragua, people don't have ice. I don't know where this came from. They have an ice pack, and I've got it on my face, and they put a pinch runner on the base, and somebody gave me a blue raspberry blow pop. I remember that very specifically because I had a really big cut in my mouth, and I was like, thank you. The next couple of days, like, not important. Like, I really wanted to keep playing, and they're like, no, you should probably go get that checked out. And I didn't believe them until they showed me a mirror. And I looked just like an avatar, just like no distinction between anything on my face. And I sent my picture of myself to my mom for Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, Mom, I'm okay. And they somehow let me be the greeter for all the new Peace Corps volunteers that got off the plane that day. I was in Managua, like, looking good, couldn't smile, and was like, welcome to Nicaragua. And then I went to Panama, and I got surgery, and all of that is like not that important, because what is important is that when I got back from Panama, I walked into my boss's office, and I was like, cool, ready to go, I'm going back. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I really, like, I'm not gonna not go back. I love this community, I love these people. Like, yeah, that game was awful, but I'm going back. And he was like, good, because your friend who lived, my friend Joe, about an hour up the road walking, he had gotten MRSA in his hand and gotten shipped back to the US, and he says, do you want to take over his projects and yours? And I said, okay. And if you know the Peace Corps, you know that you spend your first couple of months just getting to know the community. You have to build trust. You have to get these people to know you. And I didn't know this town. It was off in the bush, and it was tiny and kind of reclusive, and they didn't really welcome outsiders. But they knew the game. They knew about this game. And they knew that, I mean, they didn't know me and they didn't trust me, but they knew that I was going to put myself on the line for them. And they knew that even if everything went terribly, I'd probably show up again. Because again, I'm really good at showing up. And I don't know, I guess the most important thing, every time I've gone back twice now. And everybody in my community, the thing that people who don't know me that well, the people in other communities are like, you're that white girl, that's you. Oh my God, I wish. They think I'm really good at softball, that's great. But people who don't know me that well are always like, you know, we didn't think you were gonna come back here. Like, we really thought you were never gonna come back. Nobody ever comes back. I love them, so of course I'm gonna go back. But I feel like it's important to mention that my run scored. The woman on base, she made it to home. It's also important to mention that we won that game. Totally won that game. I definitely left, but we won. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for Justin and Barley Matthews. That was great. Great story. A story of perseverance and competition and the healing properties of blue raspberry blow pops. I love that. That's great. All right, folks. Got some of these things. All right, from Pakistan. Something I learned about my own culture when traveling abroad was, 1, people think everyone in South Asia wears saris? 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 Ah, thank you. People think everyone in South Asia wears them. And number 2, we're not the only ones who claim all popular / known dishes have, I can't read this word, in our cuisine. Some word that I can't read. We're not the only ones who claim all popular / known dishes have something that I can't read in our cuisine. We're not the only ones. There are others, ladies and gentlemen. This is a testament to my poor reading comprehension. All right, another one. Something I learned about my own culture when traveling abroad was, Americans are known to say, awesome. I learned this while riding an elevator in Israel with Nigerian passengers. Yeah. Detail. Got a third one for you. Nice, I like this one. The first night at dinner with my host family, I thought I said I was full, but I actually said I was pregnant. I'm not going to embellish that one. That one's funny by itself. All right, ladies and gentlemen, audience, are you ready for your next speaker? Yeah. All right. This next speaker is a member of the faculty. We're very happy to have him at this event. Please welcome Dr. Kentaro Toyama.
Thank you. So, tell me, sir, do you believe in Jesus? That was the question I was asked a few minutes after getting into an auto rickshaw in Bangalore, India, sometime in 2007. Now, I was born Japanese. I was raised as a Buddhist and Shinto, and I'm not very religious as an adult. So of course I said, yes, I believe in Jesus, because it was late at night and we were speeding through these dark, pothole-filled streets, and the man had a slightly maniacal look in his eyes. He turned around to ask me this question. But as soon as I answered, I felt a little bit guilty because I was probably not answering the question in the way that he had intended. I believe that there was a man named Jesus, and that the things that he preached about love and compassion were worthwhile, and that he was the Son of God in the same way that we are all children of God, at least depending on your definition of children and God. So now that I've basically told you that I'm willing to contort the truth at the slightest hint of danger, I'll also own up the fact that over the 5 years that I was in India, I had many occasions in which I had to basically tell things that were not 100% truths, because I thought otherwise I really couldn't operate in this country. So just to give you an example, as I said, I lived and worked in Bangalore, and the local language in Bangalore is Kannada, and there's a common greeting there which goes uta aita, which means, have you eaten? Now, I often skipped lunch, so if I were being completely honest, I would have had to say illa, which means no. But I discovered that that was sort of like answering the question, how are you with that? And people would all of a sudden look at you with like great concern. And particularly, women would look at me like, what's wrong with you? You look so thin. Why aren't you taking care of yourself? And so I quickly learned that the right answer was swalpa hotu munchaitu, which means I ate a little while ago, which is basically true all the time. Another example, and I'm sure Tara will back me up, is that Indian people love to ask you questions like, are you married? how many children do you have? How old are your children? How many more do you think you're going to have? And this is a question where I thought, okay, I can withstand the social pressure that comes from being honest. And so I was very, I would usually answer honestly. I say, no, I'm not married. And then of course there would be a different series of questions like, how old are you? What's wrong with you? Don't you want to have children? For a long time I went answering that question that way. In most contexts that was okay. But there was this one time when that did not work out so well. So I was in a slum community in Bangalore providing a digital literacy class for girls in that community. And there was this one girl who I swear she could not have been older than 12 or 13. Right? So she asked me, oh, are you married? Are you married? And I was like, no, I'm not married, thinking nothing of it. And then she suddenly had this doe-eyed look in her eyes, and she grabbed one of my arms, and she said, will you marry me? And I was like, oh my gosh. And in my mind I'm thinking, what is this, how is this going to play out? It looks like I'm a pedophile, this is not possibly good. And then all of a sudden this other girl grabs my other arm, and she's also asking me to marry her, and so I'm caught in this tug of war, and I was so flustered that I had to say, even to this day, I do not really remember how I managed to extricate myself from that situation, especially with the laptop that I was using for that particular project. But I learned from that point that I had to be very careful, and that in certain contexts, I basically had to say, well, I have a wife, which was kind of true because I was divorced at that time and had an ex-wife. And then people would then ask, oh, well, where is she and why isn't she here? And I would say, well, she has children to attend to in America, which was kind of true because she was a high school tutor. Anyway, so, speaking of translation and auto rickshaws, I should mention, for those of you who might not know, the auto rickshaw is itself an interesting cross-cultural translation in itself. So the word rickshaw comes from the Japanese word jinrikisha, which means human-powered vehicle. And I believe what happened was the British must have seen these in China and then transliterated rikisha to rickshaw, and took either just the word or possibly even the idea to India where they became rickshaws, and then eventually, post-industrialization, they became auto rickshaws. So etymologically, what's interesting about auto rickshaws is that they're the same as automobiles, although, let me tell you, they are nothing like automobiles in practice. They have the hind quarters of, basically a miniature car, but the front is like a scooter. It's got handlebars, and you drive them just like a scooter. Some of you maybe have seen them in other countries. They're called tuk-tuks or trishaws or moto taxis. Anyway, so I actually love this mode of transport because the rickshaws are so compact that they basically cost not that much to run. The time when I was in Bangalore, again, they would cost something like 12 rupees per kilometer, which comes to about 20-25 cents per kilometer, right? I mean, unbelievably cheap. You could basically get all the way across town in a couple of bucks. And what's amazing is that Indians being Indians, they find even better ways to save money on the ride. So for example, you would often find families of 5 or 6 people, and they would cram themselves in what was basically designed for 2 adult hindquarters, right? And then on the mornings, you could often find literally a dozen kids all wearing blue uniforms crammed into a rickshaw, which if you think about it, basically comes down to a penny or 2 per child per commute, right? It's amazing. Now, of course, rickshaws are themselves a form of livelihood for the driver. And sometimes I would get into conversation with my very limited Kannada, and with sometimes the driver would speak a little bit of English. And in fact, this man who asked me whether I believed in Jesus was just such a person. And over the course of the ride, I found out that it was pretty late at night, but the next morning he was going to wake up at 5 a.m. to catch the early morning commuters. He mentioned that he had a family who lived a couple hours outside of town that he would see about once a week. He had 2 daughters, aged 3 and 6, and he was particularly proud that he was able to send his 6-year-old daughter to a private school, which again in India often costs something like $1 per month, right? So affordable even for a rickshaw driver. I knew from other things that we did, other research projects that we did with rickshaw drivers, that they would often earn something like 100 rupees per day, which came to about $2 per day. Although it depended a lot on the scruples of the driver. So for example, in my office, we once had an intern who came from the United States and somehow managed to pay the equivalent of $100 for a ride from the airport that should have cost only $8. Conversely, I remember one time in Bombay, I tried to tip this rickshaw driver an extra 20 cents, and he wouldn't take the money because he said, I have to answer the phone. So, an amazing life that they lead. And it's not an easy life. They have 18-hour shifts. The auto rickshaws break down a lot, and basically their job involves inhaling the exhaust fumes of all these other vehicles all the time. And so as I was writing this, man, I kind of felt bad that I even feared for my life at all at the beginning. And then he asked me this question that still haunts me to this day. So he was dropping me off at a fairly fancy hotel, and I'm obviously a reasonably well-dressed foreigner, and so he knew that I had a certain amount of wealth, and so he asked me, "Tell me, sir, what is the secret of your success? I want to know." And the way I thought of it, I was thinking, well, the honest answer is you should be born in a wealthy country to parents who will give you a great education. But obviously that wouldn't be of any help. And so I struggled with what I should tell him, and I was kind of silent for the rest of the trip. I knew that he was a hard worker. I knew that he took good care of his family. I knew that he was really sincere and honest about his living. And so as I got off, I gave him a big tip, and I told him the only thing that I could think of, which was work hard, care for your family, trust in Jesus. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm moved. I'm blindsided. This is what happens when I'm moved. I just lose my capacity for comedy for a second. All right, I may be running out, so these are the last two. These are the last two in the bucket. You guys ready for the last two mini slips? Yeah. All right. Ooh. This is an inversion on the I thought I said blah, but I actually said blah. I thought I was eating dinner, but I actually was eating a British breakfast. Beans for breakfast? Say what? That's how it was written. Say what? There's like accents on the A, there's like squiggles and stuff. You guys are right, that's not true. You saw through me. You saw through my tomfoolery. You guys are probably I'm hyping this one up too much. All right. I thought I said curable, but I actually said terrible. Curable, terrible. I'm not sure whether this is referencing a food or an illness or a food-borne illness. I don't know. I guess we can all stew on that one. All right. I didn't even realize that I said that until just now. We can all stew on that one. Subpar humor. Are you guys ready for your final speaker? Yeah. We're going to rein it back in from the chaos. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this next speaker is very, very cool and very, very fascinating, and I'm excited to hear his story. Give it up for Nana Asare.
Hello everyone. Hi. Okay. So during my senior year of undergrad, I was nominated to apply for the Thomas J. Watson Fellowship, which sponsors a year-long independent study around the world. And the prompt that I basically got from my professor was, your project has to be one that sets your soul on fire. So I did my project on the role of locally motivated individuals in grassroots political initiatives. I'm pretty sure that doesn't tell you how that set my soul on fire. But basically, main concept of my project was the theory of Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is something I learned about when I first traveled abroad to South Africa. Ubuntu basically is a concept that emphasizes that you are who you are based on the people that are around you, as in your interconnectedness with others helps shape who you become or who you are. So I applied this concept to public health in terms of like how those who receive public health and those that get public health in very rural areas. So it's a very long, it was a whole year's worth of project, and it's so many stories, but I'd like to share one that basically captures one of the unique and almost unstructured aspects of the project. And I'd like you to keep in mind that the shortened way of understanding what Ubuntu means is I am because we are. Okay. So around this time last year, I was in Rwanda, Kigali. I was working with an NGO called HDI, and I worked with their family and community health project. I'll collect fieldwork data and then basically work with them on how to basically provide better health services. As time went on, I found myself doing more than just data collection. I was teaching English, and probably one of my favorite moments was having to teach high school Rwandan teenagers about ovulation administration. Those kids they had jokes. So it was during one of my daily routines at HDI when I met a lady called Yvette. She wanted to start her own NGO called Women Without Limits, and it's focused on the health and rights of young single mothers and former sex workers, and also those who are current sex workers. So I'll always, she would come to the office to ask some of the people that work there for help, but everyone would be busy, and so she'd be all by herself. And Rwanda had just, if you keep up with them, they had just switched from French to English. So like to many people, it's hard to write proposals and all that in English. So I took it upon myself to help her. So I'd always meet with her in Rwandan coffee shops, and like they had these little brochette bars because I really love street food. And so I'd help her tease out her ideas and edit her papers, and she would intend to teach me some Kinyarwanda, and occasionally promise to find me a Rwandan wife. And I'd be like, nah, my mom will kill me. But it was great working with her, but she had yet to tell me why she really wanted to start her own NGO. Because in Rwanda, it's illegal for an NGO to be directly working with sex workers, and that can get your license taken away and everything. So she had yet to tell me, and I didn't want to force her to say it. So one time after I had finished helping her, we went to, they have these sports bar where you're going to buy Fanta. You love Fanta Lemon, so we had Fanta Lemon. We watched soccer. And so I was like, Yvette, why are you really doing this? So that was when she paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and she was like, so she started telling her life story. It's really long, but I'll cut it short. So basically, Yvette got pregnant at a really young age, and her family disapproved of that. So she was basically on her own, had to take care of her baby, and around that time in Rwanda, there wasn't much that she could do. So basically, she resorted to prostitution to take care of her child. She recalled that it was her bond with other women who were also like young single mothers or in the prostitution business that basically helped her carry, because they would give her advice, because they were much older women. They'll tell her to use her time off or early days to like take classes and better herself and basically get out of the business. So with time, she managed to do well, go to community college, and basically she got out of the business. But she was telling me, she was like, it was her time with those women and those people in those situations that basically helped her out of that. As in, like, if you think back to what I told you about Ubuntu, which is your interconnectedness, she became who she is now because of the bond that she shared with those women. So I remember when I was leaving Rwanda, and she was like, my brother, I have to do something to help out these women and people in this situation, because during my time, I had nobody to help me, and currently, there are many women and many girls who are currently going through that. So she owes it to them. So throughout my whole year, I traveled to Peru, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Nepal, Myanmar, and Thailand, and I met many people and been in many situations that showed me that the concept of Ubuntu that I applied to my projects has many faces, each showed differently and based on different cultures. But basically, I think I've come to a conclusion that it boils down to just a genuine feeling of empathy and benevolence. And I'd like to leave you with a quote I got from one of my favorite people I met in Myanmar. Her name was Meow Meow, but I kept calling her Meow Meow. She's an amazing woman. She would always give me food and call me fat right after. But I think the quote really captures the whole year I spent traveling and all the people that I met. And basically also sums up what drives me to want to do what I want to do in my career. And if you speak Burmese, I am so sorry, because I might say it wrong. But it goes like this. It's Tita Pin Kaunling, Ingetaton Na Hainde. And in English, it's if there's a good tree, 10,000 birds can rest. Thank you.
Give it up for Mama Ascarin, everybody. All right, well, what do you think? Do you think we got time? No? All right, well, okay, I guess that's our show. Thank you very much for coming. Give it up for the speakers. Give it up for International Career Pathway Series. School of Information, College of Engineering, School of Social Work, College of LSNA, the International Center, Ruse Roast, right? That's the copy, right? Give it up for all those people. And give it up for yourselves. You guys have been wonderful. You guys have been great. You've been fantastic. You've been superlative. You've been top notch. You've been A-OK. You've been, okay, I'm running out of, okay, I'm done. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good night.